Florence Nightingale was born on the 12th of May 1820 into a wealthy, well-connected British family at the Villa Colombaia in Florence, Tuscany, Italy, and was named after the city of her birth. She was an English social reformer and statistician, and the founder of modern nursing. Florence's older sister Frances Parthenope had similarly been named after her place of birth, Parthenope, a Greek settlement, now part of the city of Naples. The family moved back to England in 1821, with Nightingale being brought up in the family's homes at Embley, Hampshire and Lea Hurst in Derbyshire. Florence inherited a liberal humanitarian outlook from both sides of her family. Her parents were William Edward Nightingale and Frances Nightingale. In 1838, her father took the family on a tour in Europe, when he was introduced to the English-born Parisian hostess Mary Clarke, with whom Florence bonded. She recorded that Clarke was a stimulating hostess who did not care for her appearance, and while her ideas did not always agree with those of her guests, she was incapable of boring anyone. Her behaviour was said to be exasperating and eccentric, and she had no respect for upper-class British women, whom she regarded generally as inconsequential. But she and Florence were to remain close friends for 40 years, despite their 27-year age difference. Nightingale underwent the first of several experiences that she believed were calls from God in February 1837 while at Embley Park, prompting a strong desire to devote her life to the service of others. In her youth, she was respectful of her family's opposition to her working as a nurse, only announcing her decision to enter the field in 1844. As a young woman, Nightingale was described as attractive, slender and graceful. While her demeanour was often severe, she was said to be very charming and to possess a radiant smile. Her most persistent suitor was the politician and poet Richard Monckton Milnes, but after a 9-year courtship she rejected him, convinced that marriage would interfere with her ability to follow her calling to nursing. In Rome in 1847 she met Sidney Herbert, a politician who had been Secretary at War and who was on his honeymoon. He and Nightingale became lifelong close friends. Herbert would be Secretary of War again during the Crimean War, when he and his wife would also be instrumental in facilitating Nightingale's nursing work. Nightingale continued her travels now with Charles and Selina Bracebridge as far as Greece and Egypt. While in Athens, Greece, Nightingale rescued a juvenile little owl from a group of children who were tormenting it, and she named the owl Athena. Nightingale often carried the owl in her pocket until the pet died, soon before Nightingale left for Crimea. At Thebes, she wrote of being called to God, while a week later near Cairo she wrote in her diary, "God called me in the morning and asked me would I do good for him, alone, without reputation." Florence Nightingale's most famous contribution came during the Crimean War, which became her central focus when reports got back to Britain about the horrific conditions for the wounded. On the 21st of October 1854, she and the staff of 38 women, volunteer nurses that she trained, including her aunt May Smith and 15 Catholic nuns mobilised by Henry Edward Manning, were sent under the authorisation of Sidney Herbert to the Ottoman Empire. Nightingale was assisted in Paris by her friend Mary Clarke. They were deployed about 340 miles across the Black Sea from Balaclava in the Crimea, where the main British Army camp was based. After Nightingale sent a plea to the Times for a government solution to the poor condition of the facilities, the British government commissioned Isambard Kingdom Brunel to design a prefabricated hospital that could be built in England and shipped out. The result was Renkoy Hospital, a civilian facility which fell under the management of Dr. Edmund Alexander Parkes. During her first winter at Scutari, 4,077 soldiers died there. 10 times more soldiers died from illnesses such as typhus, typhoid, cholera and dysentery than from battle wounds. With overcrowding, defective sewers and lack of ventilation, the Sanitary Commission had to be sent out by the British government to Scutari in March 1855. Almost 6 months after Nightingale had first arrived. The Commission flushed out the sewers and improved ventilation. Death rates were sharply reduced, but she never claimed credit for helping to reduce the death rate. Nightingale still believed that the death rates were due to poor nutrition, lack of supplies, stale air and overworking of the soldiers. After she returned to Britain and began collecting evidence before the Royal Commission on the health of the army, she came to believe that most of the soldiers at the hospital were killed by poor living conditions. During the Crimean War, Nightingale gained the nickname of the Lady with the Lamp from a phrase in a report in the Times. She is a ministering angel without any exaggeration in these hospitals, and as her slender form glides quietly along each corridor, every poor fellow's face softens with gratitude at the sight of her. When all the medical officers have retired for the night and silence and darkness have settled down upon those miles of prostrate sake, she may be observed alone with a little lamp in her hand, making her solitary rounds. In the Crimea on the 29th of November 1855, the Nightingale Fund was established for the training of nurses during a public meeting to recognise Nightingale for her work in the war. There was an outpouring of generous donations. Sidney Herbert served as honorary secretary to the fund and the Duke of Cambridge was chairman. Nightingale was considered a pioneer in the concept of medical tourism as well, based on her 1856 letters describing spas in the Ottoman Empire. She detailed the health conditions, physical descriptions, dietary information and other vital details of patients whom she directed there. Nightingale had £45,000 at her disposal from the Nightingale Fund to set up the Nightingale Training School at St Thomas Hospital on the 9th of July 1860. The first trained Nightingale nurses began work on the 16th of May 1865 at the Liverpool Workhouse Infirmary, now called the Florence Nightingale School of Nursing and Midwifery. The school is part of King's College, London. In the 1870s, Nightingale mentored Linda Richards, America's first trained nurse, and enabled her to return to the United States with adequate training and knowledge to establish high-quality nursing schools. Richards went on to become a nursing pioneer in the US and Japan. By 1882, several Nightingale nurses had become matrons at several leading hospitals, including in London St Mary's Hospital, Westminster, and others across Britain and the world. In 1883, Nightingale became the first recipient of the Royal Red Cross. In 1904, she was appointed a Lady of Grace of the Order of St John, and in 1907 she became the first woman to be awarded the Order of Merit. The following year she was given the honorary freedom of the City of London. Her birthday is now celebrated as International CFS Awareness Day. Although much of Nightingale's work improved the lot of women everywhere, Nightingale was of the opinion that women crave sympathy and were not as capable as men. She criticised early women's rights activists for decrying an alleged lack of careers for women at the same time that lucrative medical positions under the supervision of Nightingale and others went perpetually unfilled. She preferred the friendship of powerful men, insisting they had done more than women to help her attain her goals, writing, "I have never found one woman who has altered her life by one iota for me or my opinions." Florence Nightingale died peacefully in her sleep in her room at 10 South Street, Mayfair, London, on the 13th of August 1910 at the age of 90. The offer of burial in Westminster Abbey was declined by her relatives, and she is buried in the graveyard at St Margaret's Church in East Wellow, Hampshire, near Embley Park. She left a large body of work, including several hundred notes that were previously unpublished. A memorial monument to Nightingale was created in Carrara marble by Francis William Sargent in 1913 and placed in the cloister of the Basilica of Santa Croce in Florence, Italy. Nightingale's lasting contribution has been her role in founding the modern nursing profession. She set an example of compassion, commitment to patient care, and diligent and thoughtful hospital administration. Her achievements are all the more impressive when they are considered against the background of social restraints on women in Victoria, England. She was also a pioneer in data visualization with the use of infographics, effectively using graphical presentations of statistical data. Her Crimean War achievements were exaggerated by media at the time, but critics agree on the importance of her later work in professionalising nursing roles for women. Florence was born to nurse. It was her one sole aim in life to help and serve others. She became a hero and a saviour to many and will always be remembered as the lady with a lamp.